Right. Well, good morning. Happy Friday. Nice to see everybody. Hi, Rebecca. So we're talking about this idea about point zero in the body where extension and expansion are balanced. These are the terms for length going vertically and length running perpendicular to the torso. And so we're going to kind of continue that, but today we're going to explore twisting and the idea that we can expand across the abdomen, but we can also contract across the abdomen. And so we're going to play with that idea. We're going to start the class with a lot of seated twists and seated abdominal broadening moments as well. And then we'll take it up to standing and explore some standing postures with those ideas. So it's May 7th, so come into your less dominant, less favorite position for cross-legged, seated, easy seated, Sukhasana, good space pose. And just kind of establish the weightedness of the lower half, the perch right on top of the sitting bones, and then moving the shoulders into alignment with the hips. Feeling a lifting and a spreading. So extension and expansion across the chest and the torso. Making sure the skull is directly above the spine. And then without the shoulders moving forward, bringing the hands together in front of the heart, closing the eyes, pointing the gaze away from the brain. Just beginning to settle into this pose and arrive into your body onto your mat. Observing the breath. So just to bringing an idea here, going within and how that can bring us to center. But in contrast, how reaching out to the unknown brings growth. And we're going to play with both ideas today, going inward towards center and expanding outward from center. And just bringing more attention to the abdomen, this kind of intersection in the body. And as you feel ready, bowing towards your heart. Let your hands release down, and when you're ready, lift your head, let your eyes gently open. And welcome. So we're going to do a few seated poses that explore the spaciousness of the abdomen. So we'll think about that as kind of the broadness, the outward movement, expansive movement of the abdomen. So we're going to take Baddha Konasana, which is, you can stay on your blanket so that you have a little bit of support underneath you. Your lower back is not tempted to round. You want to be right on the sitting bones. You may need some support under your knees or all the way up to the hips. So make sure your legs feel cradled and heavy. And we're just going to bring the hands behind us. You might probably be on the fingertips. So supporting the shoulders, sitting back, the chest lifting and spreading. And again, just make sure your skull is adjusted so it's right above the spine. You're not having your head too far forward as is usually the case. And of course, there's many areas you can pay attention to in Baddha Konasana, but I want you to just bring some awareness into the center body, the abdomen, the broadening of the abdomen. How the pose naturally opens the abdomen. And in general, when we're opening the abdomen, the back body is moving the opposite direction. When we twist the abdomen, you'll feel hopefully the back body broadening. So the 0 point is reached when we can match extension with expansion. It's a way to bring balance and harmony, the experience of the pose. Just coming into a few more extended exhale breath cycles. So taking the exhale just a bit farther. The idea is not to inflate the abdomen. So when you breathe in, think about the belly right under the ribs, not extending out forward beyond the ribs. We'd like to see the breath move up the body rather than push forward. Then we kind of lose the potential to breathe up into the chest. So the broadening of the breath will help. Now we're going to kind of keep going with this idea of broadening the abdomen. We're going to come into virasana, seated hero pose. So you can set up however is needed so that you have sufficient support. Make sure that you have something for the sitting bones to rest upon, whether it's the floor or another prop. And you might also need to close the gap between your butt and your feet. You might need a bolster, some blankets to do that. And of course, this is going to help us prepare the legs for the standing practice. So bringing some breath and attention into the legs. You might put your hands on your feet. But again, observing the spaciousness and how this pose helps the abdomen to broaden, to expand from the center point out in a horizontal way. Noticing where the body is receiving the stretch, maybe your ankles, maybe your shins, maybe the lower back here, could be anywhere. And again, just go for a few prolonged exhalations. So encouraging the breath to move out a little bit farther than you would if you weren't thinking about the breath. Keep the chest lifted as you exhale. And we're going to play with this a little bit more. Two more poses. We're going to come into Upavishta Konasana. So we'll move out of Virasana, where you are now, and you're going to sit on the corner of a blanket. You might need to double your blanket over, kind of triangle your blanket so you have a thick enough little wedge to sit upon. We'll go ahead and create that little corner, whatever height or amount of height you need, so that you're feeling able to stay on the sitting bones. So we want to kind of match extension and expansion, and I want you to just kind of hold two ideas at once here. The chest staying lifted in an extensive way, up and down, and the abdomen staying broad, so in a horizontal way. So take your hands behind your, kind of to the outer thighs, just to kind of rest upon the fingertips to keep your weight balanced over the sitting bones. Anchor the legs into the floor. Try to spread the backs of the knees, which will relieve some of that Virasana kind of leftover feeling. And then just see if you can hold the ideas of lifting the breastbone and expanding the belly, the abdomen. And just kind of matching these sensate experiences in your body. The breastbone is another intersection. We have just like the abdomen, where we have the arms stretched out meeting that center point, the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. It's a very, as we know, a very important region of the body to work with in yoga. And as you breathe in, instead of poofing the belly out, see if you can keep the belly in line with the rib cage. You're not poofing the belly beyond that kind of frontal plane. And you might be able to bring the breath up in an expansive quality. Good. And now last but not least, we're going to turn the blanket just so that we're sitting on the straight edge. And we're going to come into Dandasana. Still using your hands for support. You might need to kind of run your hands down the backs of your legs to bifurcate the muscles so your legs sit down a little bit more firmly against the floor, especially if you have more muscular or fleshy legs. That's helpful to do that. Pressing the legs into the floor, we know gives the spine the extensive quality. This is why the pose is called Dandasana. The Danda is the spine. And then just be with the breath and be with the attention, again, in that broadening abdomen. The lifted breastbone, the broadening abdomen. Just little imprints on the body here that will carry over to our standing poses where we kind of apply all these same ideas. Go ahead and release your Dandasana, give your legs a shake, maybe give your arms or wrists a shake. And we're gonna come into some twists now. We're gonna do 3 seated twists, starting with Bharad Vajrasana. So you're going to take your right leg into your hero position. Attempting to be on the top of the foot. The left foot will be running under the front ankle, so you'll see your left toes pointing sideways, your right toes pointing back. There's a big momentum of weight to shift to the left right now. So you want to correct that a little bit by raising the height underneath the left sitting bone. So you're not going to blanket equally across the sitting bones. You're going to raise the height under the left sitting bone. So if you need to modify this pose, you can have more kind of obtuse legs, just kind of both legs over to the right side. You can open the knee a little bit. I know some of us need to modify this. But if you're able to keep your right leg in your hero position, you're going to be closer to the classical pose. So do what you can. In a moment, we're going to turn away from the right side. So before we do that, I want you to kind of imagine the outer shin coming to the floor, the right outer shin coming to the floor, even anchoring into your right small toe. Okay, we're going to take the arms up here. And on an exhale, bring your right hand to your left thigh, your left hand behind you. And if you need a block under the fingertips, you want to make sure to use one so that you don't have to tilt your torso back. We want to keep the torso upright. So now we're coming into the idea of the abdomen moving toward the center point in that horizontal way. So instead of out from the center point, in toward the center point. As a result, the back body is broadening. So we want to kind of keep that in mind and keep lifting your breastbone. Keep complementing the expansion with the extension, the lift of the breastbone. You're going to be able to squeeze a little bit more out of this if you turn to the back of your right hand now. So put the back of the right hand against the left thigh. It should help you bring some of that kind of trapped, congested armpit, right armpit out of the shadows into the sunlight. And keep kind of anchoring into right small toe, right outer shin. Wonderful. After an exhale, inhale, you can raise the arms, come back to center. Exhale, lower the arms. Good. Other side. So we're going to switch the legs. We're going to switch the setup. Take the blanket to the other side. Your left leg will come into hero position. And your right foot is running under the front left ankle. So if you're in the classical position with the legs, which is actually still modified because eventually we're having this right leg will be in half lotus, meaning the right foot is sitting on top of your hip flexor, groin and thigh here. But we want to see that we have left toes pointing back, right toes pointing sideways. And then create a little bit more balance. It's not going to be perfect, but raising the height underneath the right sitting bone. Draw attention to rolling the outer left shin down, the small toe of the left foot down. Raise the arms. And on an exhale, turning to the right. Left hand to right thigh, palm down to begin with. Right hand behind you, maybe propping the hand so that you can keep your torso really upright. Keeping the extension cleanly moving up. And just imagine the center body, those horizontal lines moving in toward the navel as the back body spreads and broadens. And when you sense your twist is nearing the chest, flip to the back of the hand so that you can move the armpit chest around and keep working the twist up the spine. Balancing that momentum to dump your weight to the right side by grounding and anchoring into the outer left shin. Beautiful. Finishing an exhalation. Inhale, raise the arms. And exhale, lower the arms. Good. So go ahead and extend your legs forward, and we're going to turn the blanket to the straight edge again. We'll come into Marichyasana 3. So come into Dandasana, which is just 2 straight legs in front of you, to really relieve the knees of any funk that landed with what you just did. And then we're going to be taking the right knee, bending it, and bringing the right heel in toward the right sitting bone. So again, we're about to really compress the abdomen from the outer points, the periphery to the core. Sometimes we work from the core to the periphery. So you're going to rest your right hand next to your right hip. Inhale, raise the left arm. For modified, you'll just take hold of the right shin with your hand and begin to turn to the right. If you have more room to work with or you're ready for a deeper twist, you'll catch the left arm to the right thigh and work that way. Make sure you're not tilting back, so use a block under that right hand if you need some height so that you don't have to lean to make contact with the floor. And remember, your left leg is an anchor, so it shouldn't just be sitting there idle. It's pressing into the floor. And notice the result of twisting deeply in the abdomen here. We can expand the back body more. So use this as an opportunity to open the back body. Keep the breastbone lifted. Keep complementing the qualities of extension and expansion to really hit that 0 point. Wonderful. Inhale. You're going to come back to center out of the twist. Extend your right leg. You might give your legs a little shake, a little refresh. And then you can gently draw the left heel in. Make sure you don't come in too close and round the lower back. So don't have the heel super close if your lower back just became a letter C. We want to keep our perch on our sitting bones. We'll have left hand next to the outer hip, raise the right arm. And again, you can either go for the shin grab or you can go for the arm connecting with the thigh. Depends on what your body tells you really. So don't let the ego drive your practice. Let sensation and instinct drive your practice. There's a great saying, don't let the ego rob the glory of the pose. Well, I'm not going to get it right, but I'll get it in a little bit. I'll come up with it. So 3 more exhales. Bringing Bring that armpit, chest around if you can, keeping your breastbone lifted, keeping your weight forward. And then inhale, raise the arm, come out of the twist. Lower the arm, extend your left leg, give your legs a shake. All right. So last but not least, one more twist. This is Ardha Matsyendrasana, so half Lord of the Fishes. So you're gonna take the right knee in front of the right hip. For a little bit more modified position, the left foot will sit in front of the right shin. To go deeper, you're gonna cross to bringing the left foot outside the right thigh. If you did the right thigh position, you're gonna wanna rebalance your sitting bone weight to become a little bit more even. And just make sure that when you're here, you're not uprooting your inner left foot. If you did go to the thigh side, you wanna be able to ground the inner left foot. Wonderful. All right. So resting the left hand next to the left hip, raise the right arm. Again, you can grab shin for more modified, or you can drop right arm to left thigh. Do your best to bring that left hand directly behind you, centered behind you, and again, propping the hand if necessary. Feeling the abdomen contracting, moving inward, the lower back broadening. Don't rob the instinct of the body for the glory of the pose. Good. Now finishing an exhalation. Inhale, free the arms up to come out of the twist with good extension, preserved. And then exhale, lower the arms. We're gonna just swap out the legs for second side of Ardha Matsyendrasana. Half Lord of the Fishes. And again, your choice to bring the right foot to the shin or the thigh. The thigh will be a little bit deeper, in which case you should probably take a moment to reset the sitting bone weight. Right hand next to right hip. Inhale, raise the left arm, and on an exhale, either catching the shin or dropping the arm to meet the thigh. And then sliding right hand so it's centered behind you. Nice and close to your body, again, so you're not leaning back on a kickstand. You want to keep that hand pushing into the floor to keep your weight forward. Breastbone is lifting, back body is broadening, and then the front abdomen area is contracting inward. Finishing an exhalation. Inhale to raise the arms. Exhale, bring the arms down. And then extend your legs out in front of you. Release the legs. And we're going to come into standing mountain Tadasana. So go ahead and, before you come into mountain pose, just position your blocks so that you have one to each long end of the mat, toward the back of the mat. We're going to be pairing poses that complement the broad abdomen with the contracted abdomen. So once your blocks are set up, just joining the legs and feet, you can separate distance between the feet if you need more stability today. Feel your Dandasana legs in Tadasana. So the legs that are compressing from front to back, the firmness, the yawning open backs of your knees, the extension of the ankles, the Achilles tendons. Try to bring the heels deeper into the floor. Extending is an obvious kind of sensation in this pose. So once you tap into the extension, just finding the broadness. You can feel the broadness of the abdomen, the chest, the shoulders, the pelvis. And then we're gonna open our eyes, and you can either jump out or step out. We're gonna do both poses on the right and then both poses on the left, just so that we can quickly compare and contrast. So we're gonna come into side angle pose, revolving side angle pose first. You can take your hands to your hips as you move from the root of the right thigh, taking the right toes out, taking the left toes in, redirecting your torso back to face the center of your mat, keeping the knee pointing at those right toes. Extend your arms. Inhale here, and on exhale, take the right knee over the right ankle. And I just want you to keep the breastbone lifted and feel the broadening abdomen from the navel, from the center point outward, crossing the axis of the spine. Wonderful. So we're going to come into side angle pose now, extending to your block and grounding your hand outside the foot. Take the left hand to your left hip. Revolve your torso from right to left. Keep the right knee squeezing against the arm or block. And then stacking that top arm, revolving the arm and aligning it with the ear to create that left slash with your side body, diagonal slash from the fingertips to the foot. Okay, maybe noticing the contracting back body as you feel the broadening front body. Still feeling strong extension of the entire chain of the spine. Now take your hand back to your hip. We're going to pivot off the back heel and switch the block to be inside that right foot. So you're kind of in a lunge with your left hand down. You want to keep your right knee 90 degrees. Take your right hand to your right hip. Same side as the bent knee. So Kathleen, switch your arms. Good. And now I want you to start to turn to the right. Twisting now. The abdomen moving from the periphery now to the core, across the central axis, across the spine. Still keeping strong extension of the spine and lifting of the breastbone. Maybe sensing the back body broadening now as a result of this deepening twist. Maybe using your in-breath to invite the back body broadness, your out-breath to invite a deeper contraction to the abdomen to keep the twist going nice and deep. Now maybe, just maybe, you're going to stack that right arm, revolve it and align with the ear for the full revolving side angle pose. Maybe you're keeping the hand on the hip. If you did bring the arm into play, start to bring the hand back to the hip. I want you to pivot back onto your heel, re-ground your right arm, come back through side angle pose if you can find your way there, and on an in-breath, pull yourself up and out. Good work. Nice. Okay, block, I don't want it to trip you, so move it out of the way. Turn your toes forward and jump or step back in. And come back to mountain pose. So as we do this work of always kind of creating balance and harmony in the body, start to find more stability in mountain pose. Just a few more breaths, just observing anything that you notice. And when you feel ready, you can let your eyes blink open, jump or step out for second side of those partner poses. Grabbing the hips, setting up the legs. We'll set up for side angle pose. We come in through warrior two as we did on the right side. Make sure your torso is facing forward again, that your knee is working to face the toes, which requires a rotation of the left inner thigh out. Extend the arms, inhale, and on an exhale, take the left knee over the left ankle. Release your inner shoulder blades down your back to soften your shoulders. Feeling the spaciousness, the broadness of the abdomen. Come to the top of an in-breath. On the exhale, extending into side angle position, grounding the hand outside the foot, squeezing the knee to the arm. You can start with your hand on your hip, or you can come into the full side angle pose with the arm aligning next to the ear. Wonderful. Every time you inhale, try to expand from center to the periphery, from the navel outward. Keep the sternum lifting, the spine really extending well from the tailbone out through the top of your head. Glue, if you have the side angle arm going into play here, keep your ear magnetized to your arm. Don't let your head drop. Good. Now, if you did bring that top arm into play, you're going to bring it back to the hip. We're going to slowly, gently, safely pivot off the back heel and turn to face the short edge of the mat. Transfer your block underneath your right hand. Take your left hand to your hip. And on an exhale, start to point your chest to the left. Feeling that contraction across the abdomen. Maybe you're going to bring the top arm into play. It's really the icing on the cake. If your pose is ready for that, you'll know. Again, think about the instinct of the body versus the glory of the pose. We want to honor the instinct of the body. And if you did bring the arm up, go ahead and bring it back down. Safely transfer your block back to your left hand. Re-anchor into your right foot. And then you'll inhale yourself up and out of there. Toes forward and jump or step back in. Taking Tadasana. We'll just be here about half a minute. Watch your breath. Notice any sensations. Notice your energy. Notice your stability. Maybe the wise actions in the body are coming more spontaneously now. Okay. We'll open the eyes. We'll put our blocks to the right end of the mat, front and back of the mat, to the right side. Triangle, revolving triangle. So very similar, yet different poses. But we're going to pair them together. We'll do both on the right and then both on the left. So find your way to jumping or stepping out. Setting up the legs just like you did for side angle pose. But we'll keep them straight for triangle pose. When you set up, make sure your hips didn't just swivel off to the left. So keeping your pelvis level, not pouring out the right side, lack of a better description. We're going to raise the arms up, encouraging extension. Then we're going to open the arms, meeting that with expansion. Lift your breastbone as that kind of crossover point, and then rotate palms down. Big inhale. Exhale, extend to the right, and put your block right in line with your right shoulder. You can take your hand back to your hip if you're not ready to stack the arm, otherwise coming into that, your fullest expression of Trikonasana, triangle pose. This is another abdominal broadening pose. Every time you breathe in, just imagine spreading from the navel out towards the hip line. Wonderful. Top of the in-breath. On the exhale, you're going to turn toward the second block and take hold of it with your left hand. You're going to toe in a little bit with your left toes so that you can square your hips to face the short end of the mat. Center yourself right over the right shin with your torso. You're going to take your right hand onto your right hip. And on an exhale, begin to contract the abdomen, broaden the back, and open to the right. Maybe you take the top arm up. Maybe it only makes the pose a lesser pose if you do that. So you have to really discern if it's a good idea or not. Those in-breaths, you're going to expand the back body behind the abdomen. Those exhales contract the abdomen. Meanwhile, always keeping the extension of the spine. Come to the top of the in-breath. Exhale, lower the right hand. And you can inhale, just kind of windmill yourself up. Good. If you're free and clear of those blocks, jump or step in. Otherwise, you can move them over to the left right away quickly. And you're going to find your way to Tadasana. We'll meet each other there in just another half a minute. Just observing, allowing the breath flow as it is. Good. When you're ready, you'll be setting up for side 2. Jump or step out. Take the left toes out, right toes in. Firm and straighten your legs. Steer your torso from left to right. Without the knee following, that's very important. Keep rotating the inner left thigh out. Take the arms up and open, moving only from the elbows to the fingertips. Looks like, Sylvia, are you squaring your hips? Be open wide for this first one. Yeah. The first one is regular old open triangle pose. Okay, still turning wide towards the broad side of the mat. Okay, inhale here, exhale, extending. The left hand comes down to your block, right under the shoulder. There you go, Sylvia. Point your hips at Vern and you got it. Okay, broadening the abdomen, extending the spine. Wonderful. These look great, by the way. And I love it because Rebecca's camera is turned sideways. So right now she actually has a vertical spine and it's perfect. It's fun to see your pose in a portrait orientation, Rebecca. So we're going to meet that second block now. Turn toward the block. You're going to be pivoting a little bit. Take the back foot inward a little bit more so you can point your hips evenly at the short edge of the mat. You're resting the right arm on your right hand, which is in line with your right shoulder. And then you're going to take left hand to your hip. Wait for an exhale to start to revolve to the left, narrowing the abdomen, broadening the back, and keeping the spine extended. Maybe you get that cherry on top arm to come up, maybe not. It's not about the arm coming up or not coming up. It's about what's the best version of the pose for you today. The pose that has the most integrity in the body. 2 more out breaths. And after that second one, you can find your way back to that second block. You might pivot that back foot wider and inhale, windmill yourself up. Turn the toes forward and then jump or step back in. Taking Tadasana, joining the legs and feet. Anchor into your heels. Drop the shoulders. Okay. So we're going to do a vote here. Show of hands. Do we want to do standing balancing poses or reclining hand to big toe poses? because we have one more set. We only have time for one more set. So raise your hand for standing balancing poses. Raise your hand for reclining. One. I'm sorry, I think we won with standing balancing poses. Okay, so standing balancing poses. Half moon and revolving half moon. Okay, so blocks are going back to the right. Okay, we're gonna jump or step out. And I want you to bring yourself back to triangle pose to the right. So you were there once, your body remembers how to get there. Okay, so this is our abdominal broadening pose. Wonderful. So if your arm did go up, you're gonna bring it back to your hip. When you bend your right knee, try to keep your knee tracking with your toes. You don't have to look unless you're not sure, but we don't want the knee to waver inward. That will destabilize you. You're gonna transfer your block about a foot ahead of your right foot, step in with your left foot, and on an exhale, you're gonna raise the left leg. And you're gonna be more balanced if you have that block directly beneath your shoulder and you're on a vertical standing leg. And if you're here, just taking some time to notice the broadening abdomen from the navel out toward the hip lines. These look great. Okay, if the arm went up, you're gonna bring it back to the hip. You're gonna step back down into triangle pose. And now I'm gonna have you bring your left hand onto your left block and pivot off the back heel. So you're on both blocks. You're gonna walk forward with both blocks and raise the left leg. As a result, the left leg will come up. It's like you're in warrior 3. Now imagine the teacup on your lower back. This is a back body broadening pose, abdominal contracting pose. So bring your right hand onto your right hip. And on an exhale, turning to the right. Inhale to encourage the broadening, exhale to encourage the contraction. Maybe the arm goes up, maybe that's not a good choice. And now take your hand back to your block. You're gonna step back down and windmill yourself all the way up. And jump or step your feet together. Nice work. Good. Take a few moments, just letting that land. Watching the imprint on the breath. And we don't want to do side 2 if we're still kind of ragged with the breath. So even though we move along as a group, always make sure you're ready for side 2. If breath is ready and the energy is ready. And then we'll transfer the blocks to the left. And I'm going to have you find your way into left-sided triangle, jumping or stepping out. We really get a lot of good information here in triangle that we take into that standing half moon pose. So once you feel really stable and solid here, then move your hand to your hip, bend your left knee, have it track with the toes, step your block forward, step your right foot forward, and on an exhale, launching into that standing balancing pose. Matching the length of the spine with the broadness of the abdomen. Good. Now go ahead and step down, turn and find both blocks. Point your hips evenly at the floor. And then walk those blocks forward until the right leg floats right up, like a warrior 3. Take your left hand to your left hip, and on an exhalation, begin to turn and point the chest to the left. Contract the front abdomen and broaden the back body. Good. bring left hand back to the block. Step back down to the floor. You can walk the blocks back with you. And then leaving the pose with the right hand first coming off, windmill yourself up. Toes forward. And jump or step back in. Good. Close the eyes. Drop into your breath. Try to be as passive as you can here while maintaining the wise actions. Anchored heels, firm legs, lifting the pelvis, rib cage, skull, releasing the shoulders. You might feel your fingertips growing heavier. You might imagine someone standing behind you and putting pressure down on your shoulders. And if you're in alignment, that pressure reinforces the lightness of your spine. Okay, so before we come down to the floor, Prasarita Padottanasana, so wide-legged standing forward bend. If you can get your head in contact with something, it's going to be more quieting. I don't want to make this agitating and have you have to set up some crazy setup just to do that. So the idea is quieting. And if setting up is not going to be quieting, then don't worry about it. Just have your head hanging freely. You'll step your feet wide. Make sure your toes are in front of your heels and that you're able to anchor into your outer feet and lift the inner arches of your feet. Make sure the backs of your legs are on the same plane. You'll know because your feet feel balanced front to back. And then bring the head down to either the surface or just pointing the crown toward the floor. We're going to be here a full minute. I'm just going to watch the time here. Start to lift your head. You might need to narrow the distance between your feet to come out of it. Once you have the feet underneath you, hip distance, you might need a little softness in your knees, but you're just going to hold a standing ragdoll position, grabbing your elbows. It's really soothing for the lower back. Switch the crossing of your forearms. And go ahead and release your forearms, and you're going to bring yourself down. We're going to set up for our last pose, which is Situ Bandha Sarvangasana. So we're going to need our two blocks, a blanket and a strap. The blanket will be for your head and shoulders. And you can choose whether you're going to use the low version of your block or the medium plane of the block. I don't recommend the high plane of the block. And so the foot block will go down where the feet will be. You'll leave the block that's going under your lower back to the side for now. And you're gonna put the belt around your thighs. And you're gonna squeeze that belt tight, pull it tight so that your legs really are held together. You do not have to use a lot of effort to keep your legs together. And this will give you a better chance of keeping the heels on your block without a lot of tension or effort. So once you have your legs belted together, come down on the blanket and make sure your shoulders and head are meeting the blanket. The rest of the placement of the blanket doesn't really matter. As long as your head and shoulders have the same blanket height, you should be perfect. Your feet will go up second. So first we want to get the sacrum elevated on that first height of block, low or medium. Once you've elevated the sacrum, then you're going to use your feet and try to be a little dexterous with your feet and position the height of block that matches the sacrum block under your heels. So it takes a little finagling. And then do your best to be palms up. Chin and chest coming together. So the breastbone is lifted. We have really strong extension in the central axis here. But there's also so much expansion. And I just kind of want to have you rest in that experience of both. Let your shoulders be roots for the sternum to rise away from. And rather than letting the belly poof out toward the ceiling, broaden the abdomen with the in-breaths, spreading the breath up higher in the chest, all the way up to your collarbones. And just another minute holding the pose and letting the pose hold you. We're going to start to step the feet down. Once your feet are down, lifting your hips high enough, you can slide that second block out of the way. And then releasing your legs from the strap. Once you're free, make sure props are not crowding you for Shavasana. You might take a few movements here to release any additional tension from the body. You might adjust that blanket so now it's only under your head. Don't so much want it under the shoulders anymore. And really try to be like the fairy tale, the princess and the pea with your Shavasana. So be particular. Make all those adjustments at the forefront of the pose so that you can really be passive and restful for the remainder of the pose. So it is a pose after all. We have to set it up physically, and then we can drop into really the experience. So make sure that your outer upper arms are kind of hitting the floor. Your chest is lifted. Your shoulder blades are kind of moving in toward midline and up toward the chest. Your feet are separated spaciously. The buttock flesh is pulled away from the lower back. You should feel the butt flesh moving toward the feet, not toward the head. And your head is supported enough that your chin can move toward your chest, not away from. And then closing the eyes, maybe covering the eyes if it causes effort for you to hold the eyes closed. And now settling into really letting the pose hold you. Taking that witness seat. Just letting attention fill the entire body. BKS Iyengar had a saying that every cell has an eyeball. Just imagining every cell having some awareness. Even here, somewhat settled, the body is still somewhat contracted. So use your exhales to make yourself heavier, more surrendered, less contracted. This journey of yoga is an involution and an evolution, so we have to learn to move in both directions, into our centers and out into the world. Notice the brain's ability to stay in the now moment. When we feel more embodied, more in touch with our bodies, the brain is more likely to stay present. Now let's just take a few breaths playing with the idea of inhaling from the center out in all directions, the full circumference of breath, and then exhaling from that periphery back to the core. Just playing with little visual imagery as we breathe in, expansively as we breathe out, contracting. See if you can breathe in beyond the boundary of the body, breathe out beyond the navel to a certain kind of vanishing point. And when it feels right, come back to your easy breathing. Inviting very simple movement from the periphery, let it trickle in toward the core. Fingers, toes, wrists, ankles, head, neck. Let it start there and start to move inwards, maybe the elbows then, maybe the knees. And when you're ready, shifting to your side. Taking a few moments on your side. And gently moving from here to seated. Try to minimize effort, try to keep the brain less disturbed. Once you're seated, just taking a moment to sit quietly, just acknowledging the effects of the practice. Join the hands together in front of the heart. And just breathing the sternum out to the thumbs and up toward the sky. Let's take a nice deep breath in through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. All right, well, thanks all for being here. Just a quick announcement, I'm starting up a regular drop-in gentle class that was based off of a pretty successful series. That's going to be Wednesdays at 10 to 11. Everybody's welcome. It's very gentle. We use a chair for a lot of it. And I will be teaching live classes at the Riley Tavern starting May 15th from 10 to 11. And so feel free to come. I'd love to see you. Megan, I wish you could teleport, but she's out in Baltimore. That's not happening. All right, you guys have a good weekend and I'll see you soon. Mwah.